I never imagined that my relationship with my sister could ever turn out like this. I never thought I'd find myself in a courtroom pressing charges against her, but that's exactly what happened. It all started with something as simple as a borrowed car, but it ended in a betrayal so deep that I couldn't ever look at her the same way again. I didn't know my life would change forever the day I found out my sister had stolen my credit card information. The moment I discovered the charges, $13,000 in flights and hotels to Paris and Rome for her honeymoon, I felt the ground beneath me shift. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that she wasn't sorry. She didn't apologize, didn't even acknowledge what she had done. Instead, she thought she could get away with it. That was the moment I knew I had to press charges. The moment she was dragged off the plane in handcuffs, abandoning her newborn daughter with our retired parents. And I knew then I couldn't let her off the hook this time. My name is Emma, I'm 29 years old, and my sister Lily is 23. Growing up, we had a typical suburban life. Our parents, Mark and Susan, were loving, supportive, but they weren't blind to Lily's behavior. From a young age, Lily had this charm, this ability to make everyone forget what she'd done wrong. It was like her smile could erase any mistake she made. She had a way of getting under my skin, too. She'd take my things, hair clips, makeup, even cash from my wallet, and would promise to return them, though most times she didn't. Our parents would always tell me to be patient because she was younger. But as time went on, I realized it wasn't just that she was younger. She knew exactly what she was doing, and it frustrated me to no end. I moved out at 22, working full-time at an accounting firm, and saved up for my dream of buying a house. Lily, on the other hand, dropped out of college after just one semester, saying it wasn't for her. She started dating a guy named Jaden, a 24-year-old who had been unemployed for nearly 2 years. He was the kind of guy who talked a lot about his big ideas, but never took any action. Despite my doubts about him, I kept quiet. It wasn't my business. But things began to change when Lily announced she was pregnant last year. Our mother cried, not out of joy, but out of concern. 2 months later, the wedding took place in our parents' backyard. It was a small affair, maybe 30 people, but there was a cloud hanging over it. Jaden's parents barely smiled. Lily, however, was all smiles. Her wedding dress came from an online shop, and throughout the evening, she couldn't stop talking about their plans for a honeymoon. Paris, Rome, maybe a little time in Spain. But there was one question no one asked. How would they afford it? It was subtle at first, the little things that didn't quite add up. For a while, I convinced myself that it was just a phase, that Lily would grow up and figure things out. But she didn't. I started noticing how she always seemed to be in trouble. Small things at first, like borrowing my car or asking to see my credit card for just a few things. And then there were the odd requests from her and Jaden. It wasn't just that she had no plan for her future, it was that she didn't care to make one. She talked about building a social media following with Jaden, but they had no real direction. Just a vague notion of becoming influencers, posting videos of mundane activities like grocery shopping or cooking. I didn't understand it. I never did. But Lily believed in it, in the idea that fame and money would come from being seen. Then, in September, came the request that felt off. Lily asked to borrow my car again. I said yes, thinking nothing of it. She was my sister, after all. But this time, she didn't just run errands. She came back 2 hours later, thanking me and saying she'd gone to the mall and the grocery store. I didn't think anything of it, but little did I know, that small act was the beginning of a betrayal. 3 weeks later, I received an email from my credit card company. At first, I thought it was just a mistake. But then I saw the charges. $13,000, first-class flights to Paris, luxury hotels in Rome, tour packages, all for a honeymoon that Lily and Jaden could never have afforded. My stomach dropped. I instantly thought of the day she borrowed my car. I remembered her looking through my wallet to find my grocery store rewards card. I knew, deep down, she'd taken a picture of my credit cards while I wasn't paying attention. But I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to see what would happen, to let her think she could get away with it. The phone call came 2 hours after I had left the airport. I had seen them off, barely registering the designer luggage they carried, luggage I knew they couldn't afford. But what shocked me wasn't that they were going on a honeymoon that was paid for by my stolen credit cards. No, it was the phone call I received from Lily, crying, practically incoherent, saying they had been pulled off the plane. The airport police had dragged them off just before takeoff. Their tickets were flagged as fraudulent. I could hardly believe it. There she was, asking me to bail her out, to save her from the consequences of her actions. I told her I couldn't help. I wouldn't. She was begging me for $12,000, claiming they'd be arrested if I didn't help. It was at that moment that I realized this wasn't just about the money. This was about accountability. I hung up the phone. I knew what I had to do. I called the credit card company and filed the police report. Lily had crossed a line she could never undo. She had stolen from me, and I was going to make sure she faced the consequences. I wasn't going to be her fallback, her safety net anymore. And when I saw our parents' faces as they learned about what happened, I knew that there was no going back. I wasn't prepared for how quickly everything spiraled. The shock was overwhelming at first. How could Lily do this to me? To us? To our family? I kept replaying the events in my mind, asking myself where I had gone wrong. Had I missed the signs? Was I too naive to see how deep her lies went? But no, the truth was undeniable. Lily had always manipulated her way through life, and this time it caught up with her. She wasn't the girl I used to know, the one who needed help and guidance. No, this Lily was someone different, someone I didn't recognize. I avoided confronting her for a few days, letting the shock wear off. But the time came when I had to face her. I walked into our parents' house, where Lily was sitting with a blank stare, looking like she hadn't slept in days. She didn't even meet my eyes when I entered. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" I asked, my voice colder than I wanted. She didn't answer, just stared blankly at the floor. I couldn't let her off the hook, not this time. "I'm pressing charges," I said. Her face twisted in disbelief. She didn't say anything, but the look in her eyes said it all. She didn't believe I would actually do it, but I would. I had to. This wasn't just about the money. It was about accountability. It was about facing the consequences of her actions. And maybe, just maybe, she'd finally learn what it meant to hurt someone and actually pay for it. Things didn't get better after I filed the police report. In fact, they only got worse. Lily's behavior became more erratic as the days passed. She stopped taking my calls. When I saw her, she'd act like everything was normal, like nothing had happened. She would show up at family events with a forced smile, pretending like I hadn't just put her life on a path she couldn't undo. But behind the scenes, things were unraveling for her. Our parents, especially our mom, were caught in the middle. They didn't know what to think. On one hand, they were heartbroken over the situation. Lily was their daughter, after all. But on the other, they knew what she had done was wrong. Our dad, who had always tried to be the level-headed one, was conflicted. He wanted to protect her, but he also saw the weight of what she had done to me. The more time passed, the more I felt like I was losing my grip on everything. Lily's actions weren't just tearing apart my relationship with her, they were fracturing the entire family. Our parents were stressed, caught between defending their daughter and facing the reality of the betrayal. The phone calls from our parents became more frequent, mostly from Mom. She would update me on what was going on with Lily and Jaden. It was clear that Lily was feeling the heat of the situation. She was trying to act like she could still handle everything, but deep down, I knew she was spiraling. Then, the worst happened. She started asking our parents for money. She and Jaden had no way of paying back the $13,000 they owed the travel agency, and she expected our parents to foot the bill. That was the moment I had to make a choice. I couldn't be the one to bail her out. It wasn't my responsibility to fix what she had broken. I refused. When Lily found out that I wasn't going to help, the tension between us grew. She stopped talking to me altogether. The guilt and shame I saw in her eyes were almost too much to bear, but I couldn't back down. This wasn't about money or comfort. This was about boundaries. And Lily's disregard for those boundaries was something I could no longer ignore. It wasn't until I saw the toll this was taking on our parents that I hit my breaking point. Our mother, who had always been the rock of our family, was no longer the same. She started losing sleep, staying up late trying to figure out how to make things right. Dad, ever the strong one, was quietly processing his own anger, guilt, and confusion. It hurt to watch them try to fix something that couldn't be fixed. I remember one evening, sitting in the living room, staring at the clock as it ticked louder with each passing second. I hadn't spoken to Lily in days. She wasn't returning my calls. I hadn't even seen her, not since that night I confronted her. But the silence was the hardest part. The silence that stretched between us felt like a weight on my chest. How had we gotten here? How had she turned into someone who could hurt her own family so deeply? I found myself spiraling. I questioned everything, my role in this mess, my choices. Was I being too harsh? Should I have tried to fix things sooner? Could I have stopped her before she did this? But deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't my fault. It was hers. I had to remind myself of that over and over. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. I barely recognized the person I saw. Someone who had been so patient, so caring, now had to be cold and resolute. The person I once was felt so far away. But I couldn't let her break me. I couldn't let her guilt manipulate me anymore. The turning point came when I finally got the call I had been waiting for. A detective from the fraud department reached out, saying they had everything they needed to move forward with the case. It was the moment I had been dreading, the moment I knew I couldn't turn back. I spent the whole day thinking about it. I wasn't just pressing charges anymore. This was bigger than that. This wasn't just a mistake that could be fixed with an apology. It was a deep betrayal, a betrayal that could tear our family apart forever. The weight of it all hit me like a ton of bricks. I had to make a choice. Either I let Lily continue to hurt us, to manipulate our family and walk away scot-free, or I stood my ground. I stood my ground. I didn't let the guilt consume me. I didn't let the memories of the little girl I used to protect cloud my judgment. This was bigger than that. So I went to the police station. I met with the detective and gave my full statement. I made it clear that this wasn't just about the money. It was about holding Lily accountable for her actions. And as I signed the papers that day, I felt a strange sense of clarity. It wasn't closure, but it was the beginning of something. The beginning of me finally taking control of my life again. The aftermath wasn't pretty. Our family fractured. There was no avoiding it. I couldn't pretend that things were normal anymore. My relationship with Lily had been permanently changed. The court case was a blur. Lily pled guilty. She was ordered to pay restitution, but I knew it wouldn't fix what had been broken. The court didn't care about our family dynamics. They only cared about the money. But the real consequences were felt in our home. Our parents were exhausted. They didn't want to pick sides, but they had to. They were forced to confront the truth. Lily had put them in this impossible position, and they were too tired to keep defending her actions. I stayed away from the chaos. I focused on my life, my work, and tried to rebuild what I could. But it wasn't easy. Lily wasn't the sister I knew anymore. She was a stranger to me, and as the days passed, I realized something that made it all worthwhile. The truth had come to light. Lily had faced the consequences of her actions. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was a necessary one. I'm not sure if I'll ever fully forgive Lily. She's still my sister, and I'll always care for her, but the trust is gone. What happened between us will never be the same, but in the end, I've learned something important. We cannot let the actions of others define our worth. I chose to take control of my life, to face the truth no matter how painful it was, and to protect myself from someone who took advantage of my love. For now, I focus on moving forward. I focus on rebuilding the bonds that matter. And as for Lily, I hope one day she learns what it means to be truly accountable for her actions. Until then, I'll continue living my life, knowing that I made the right choice.